Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, we're a little delayed because of my technical difficulties. So let's go, baby.
All
Rapid
right,
fire.
here we go. Chris Tyree. He's got a new number. He's wearing number 2 now this year.
Like it.
And of course, he was playing a new position today. He was working out with the wide receivers. So Marcus Freeman asked at his press conference, is that a permanent thing for Chris Tyree?
Permanent move, it's to be determined. I think he's a guy that has multiple skill sets, and we know Chris Tyree is a guy we have to have on the football field. And, the ability to put him out some wide out. And we know what he can do as a running back and to really be a guy that can do multiple different things. You're seeing more of that in college football and the NFL. Guys that can play multiple different skill positions on offense. So do you treat him as a running back? Do you treat him as a wide out? And that's what we got to be able to do and gain confidence at the quarterbacks and him as a wide receiver. But he's shown the skill set to be a wide receiver at this level. And, we think we can use him as in multiple different positions.
I don't care if you treat him as a running back or a wide receiver. It's just like just do your dance, because like he said out loud what everyone else has been saying for the last season. You got to have Chris Tyree on the field more often. Doesn't matter where he is.
Number one, I love the new number. It's sleeker. It's faster. I love it. I love it. Number two, thank you. It's about freaking time.
Yes.
And they just need to delete the position next to his name on the roster and just put ATH. That's
Athlete.
it. That's all you need to do. Because they are 100% correct. They need him on the field. He's going to learn wide receiver. He's going to learn running back. He's going to be all over the friggin' place because you need to get him on the field. And any sane human realizes his skill set needs to be on the field.
Do you think maybe there was a difference of opinion between Tommy Rees and Marcus and or Jared Parker on the Chris Tyree, or maybe even Dylan McCullough, I don't know, on the whole Chris Tyree usage? We sat here and said all season last year, you need more Chris Tyree. This is arguably the fastest guy, at least on the offense, if not the whole roster. He's in the top handful of fastest guys. He's a good pass catcher. He's had like 24, 25 receptions each of the last couple of years. We've said that. And now, I've seen like get him in space, all that. Yes, 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 and yes. And, just because you line, like you can still do running back things with him as well, regardless of where he starts off. But it just makes so much sense to have Chris Tyree out there. He needs, I said it as soon as the season was over, like, you need Chris Tyree on the field as much as possible next year. When you're talking about getting your best athletes and best playmakers on the field, Chris Tyree has to be part of that.
He knows running back. He doesn't need to take running back reps right now. He doesn't know wide receiver. He needs to take wide receiver reps. I love it. It's fantastic. And your question about whether there might have been a difference of opinion on how to use Chris Tyree last year and all that. Look, it's been one practice, so we want to be careful with the jumping to conclusions.
Sure.
But I would say after one practice, I think there was a difference of opinion. And I think they're trying to right a wrong that they've had Chris Tyree in the garage, and it's time to get this sports car out on the track. Like, that's how I feel about Chris Tyree. Get him the ball in space. I don't care how you do it, but he's going to have to know all the skill positions. That's how you do it.
And I think his point about NFL, I think it makes sense as well. Like this I think helps Chris Tyree's pro potential as much as anything as well, because he is, as a running back, he's a smaller guy, but as a guy who can play running back and be a slot receiver or even, out at flank or wherever it happens to be, you're only going to help him going forward. So again,
and you're only going to help your team too.
Yeah.
Like, this is, I felt like it was so obvious.
Yeah.
That they weren't doing it.
Yeah. And Tyler Misguided Passion Bengi says, imagine 21 personnel with Tyree, Tyler, and Audric. You've got to worry about the inside run, quarterback pulling, outside run, or pass with Tyree.
Sure.
I mean, every level is threatened.
Red zone, baby.
Because it's 21 personnel, but it might as well be 31 personnel because of the fact that you've got Chris Tyree on the field. And there's so many things he can do.
I am not an offensive genius, but you can do a lot of things with that formation in the red zone. A lot of things with that formation. And then you put like, Thomas or Greathouse on the outside who are just going to be able to go up and over everybody else. Like, there's just a million different things that you can do, obviously. But, I mean, just let's have some fun with this thing, man. Like, that's what offense is to me. Let's have some fun with it.
Absolutely. I love it. So another thing that Marcus Freeman discussed was the past experience that he has with some of these new coaches on the staff and the importance of that.
I think there's nothing more important than experience with somebody. Like, I don't have to wonder what this person is like when I'm not around. And that's why if they're great coaches and you had the opportunity to work with them, you try to hire them because you know exactly what you're getting out of that guy. And that's why when I can find a quality coach that I know can be the best at his profession, but also I have a personal experience with him. I'm not saying we're friends. We either worked together. Coach Rudolph was at Ohio State when I was a player, but I knew what type of person he was, and I've kept in touch with him as he's gone through the coaching profession. That's important. I didn't know Marty Biaggi, but I remember when we were playing Purdue when I was defense coordinator, and I was sitting in a special teams meeting, and they did some unique things on special teams, and it was really good. And then I still know some people back in West Lafayette from my time there, and he does too. And, somehow his name got brought up. And so I was interested in interviewing him last year before I hired Coach Mason. So I didn't know him personally, but I had talked to him before. I knew enough about him. And so it's important because you need to know that when you're not around, you can trust those guys that you're working with.
Got to know when you're not around, you can trust those guys.
That is
Vince.
So crucial when you're putting a staff together. It's so crucial. And I know, look, I hired a staff at the high school level. You hired a staff at the high school level. Trust was by far the number one most important thing to me. Are you going to be, if I'm not there, if I have my back turned, if I have to go talk to the AD or whatever, is my message going to permeate through what you're doing? Can I trust you? Can I trust you with, I know this is a very specific example, but can I trust my JV coaches to take the JV team to a different county while I'm coaching the varsity and trust that things are going to go the way they're supposed to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trust is so important. I can teach a guy X's and O's. I can. If you're a good teacher, and I'm not saying teacher in the classroom, but I'm saying if you can partake your knowledge to someone else, if you are a good teacher of whatever, I can teach you the X's and O's and then you can teach it. But trust is so incredibly important. It's the number one for me as I was hiring people. Number one.
And the thing about, being sure that when you're not there, the message that you want out there is the message that's getting out there, and you're not getting mixed messages or, even stuff behind your back or whatever. Now, you expect at this level guys to be more professional than you, but stuff happens. And that doesn't mean that it happened previously, but what he's saying is you hire guys that you got experience with, that you're going to be on the same page with them. And I do think that's really important. Just all the things that you're talking about.
Well, and you can see, and you can parlay this to any job, right? When you've worked with somebody, whether they're your friend or not, right? And he was very specific to say that, you can still see their work ethic. You can still see how they interact with their coworkers. And by that, I mean like the players, right? You can see how they go about their daily business. That's important, man. And outside of somebody that you trust telling you those things, if you didn't actually work with them, seeing it every day, I think is absolutely crucial. And I have no problem with him hiring people that he's worked with before because he's seen them on a day-to-day basis, not just their reputation or whatever. Like, I've seen him on the good days. I've seen him on the bad days. I want that guy on my staff.
Well, and I think everything that we know about him, he's smart enough to know that you're not just going to hire a guy because he was your friend. You also have to know, in your gut that he's qualified to do the job.
Of course.
All right. So someone brought up the Yankees hat comment, and this came originally at the end of the Lorenzo Styles thing. I thought I would do this separately, though. This is a real short one, but Freeman has worn his New York Yankees cap to
Brutal.
Notre Dame hockey games, Notre Dame women's games, and we got some feedback on that from his dad.
Yeah, yesterday he sent me a text like, I don't know if you should keep wearing that Yankees hat. I'm like, Dad, what are you talking about? Some people are talking about. I'm like, Dad, stop reading social media. Like, Dad, stop reading social media. You know what I mean? It's just focus on the things that really matter, and that's for all of us to improve.
That's not a reason.
Just stop reading social media. Well, it's like,
I mean,
it's Yankees, it's Notre Dame, it's Cowboys, whoever. It's like any of those three teams, you're going to tick off half the people, I think, no matter what, right?
I think that's hilarious, and it ticked me off. So there you go. I'm not a Yankees fan by any stretch of the imagination, and it hurts me.
I think
he's got a lot of
about it. Weren't we talking about it the other day?
Yes.
The Yankees cap.
He's got some cool Notre Dame lids.
I know.
Wear those, man.
Yes, we were talking about that. Wear the green with the shamrock that you had on St. Patrick's Day. Just wear that all the time.
I want
Ditch
that
the
hat.
Yankees cap. That's right.
I want the green with the blue shamrock. Like, that's a good-looking hat. Way better than the Yankees
I didn't even think about that. We were just talking about the Yankees cap the other day, and then he brought it up today.
I think it's hilarious
that
his dad brought that up.
Ditch the Yankees cap. That's right. It's like,
it's terrible.
Oh, my gosh, of all the things. All right. So just before the show started, earlier tonight, a report from Matt Norlander of CBS Sports came out, and it was confirmed by Tom Noy of the South Bend Tribune. We had him on the show last week. Micah Shrewsberry is going to leave Penn State after 2 years, and he is finalizing a 7-year contract to replace Mike Brey at Notre Dame. So is this as close to a home run hire as we could hope for in this position, Vince?
I really do think so. I mean, I'm sure that some of those younger guys at the smaller places have a lot to prove or whatever, and so they're going to be hungry, etc. But you're taking a chance, right? You're taking a chance that they're going to be able to navigate a Power 5 conference and everything that kind of goes along with that, right? Micah Shrewsberry navigated the Big Ten and did a pretty darn good job of it this year. And I believe that he is also going to be hungry. He knows the area. He's from Indiana. I want it obviously to be more of a nationwide, recruiting situation, but I think he's going to be hungry to recruit. I think this is about as home run as you can possibly get for what Notre Dame is basketball-wise right now, where they're going into the future. And I'll also say, I'm saying this now, I may eat my words at some point, I like the 7-year contract because it shows.
I'm a little surprised at the 7-year contract.
You're going to give him some time because it's going to take some time to shape
a good point.
This roster.
That's a good point. It's interesting. His son, I guess, is an incoming freshman, and he's supposed to go to Penn State next year. So I wonder.
Bring it up.
I don't know. Well, I don't know what his academics are like,
true.
But
it's true.
Potentially, again, like someone he could bring with him and start that rebuild process. And he's got the Brad Stevens background. He was part of those Final Four teams, those national championship, going to the national championship game for Butler on the staff there, before he became a head coach. And from what I understand, Jack Swarbrick being an Indianapolis guy and Brad Stevens and all that kind of stuff, that connection means something to Jack Swarbrick. So maybe that played a part in it. And you're right about the 7-year contract. I hadn't thought about it in the terms you were talking about. Like, it's going to take some time. I was thinking of it like maybe it took a 7-year contract to pry him away,
which is
from
possible,
Penn State for whatever their counteroffer was.
Sure,
that kind of thing. But
I'm sure Penn State tried to keep him. I mean,
absolutely. That. According to the report that was out yesterday, there was an offer on the table from Notre Dame, and it was a Penn State reporter who said that Penn State, had upped their ante quite a bit to try to get him to stay, and he was supposed to mull it for 24 to 36 hours. Turned out to be less than 36.
Here we are.
So
here we are.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a guy with a long track record of being a head coach, but they made the NCAA tournament in his second season, and it's Penn State. They made the NCAA tournament a heck of a lot less than Mike Brey did during his 23 years at Notre Dame. But I mean, he's impressive in the short term, and he does have that Brad Stevens connection. He is an Indiana guy. He did coach here at IUSB, which is crazy. as an assistant coach. He was an assistant at he was the coach at IUSB, Indiana University South Bend, prior to joining Brad Stevens' staff down there at Butler. So I absolutely, I think this is like when you look at the other potential candidates, and I think that they were qualified in their own ways. The guys like DeVries at Drake and Langle at Colgate, but they were mid-major guys. And this guy is at least coached in Big Ten, even though they still haven't had, there's what, one Big Ten team left, I think, right now. I personally do think the Big Ten can be a little bit overrated year in and year out, but still they had more teams. They were a better conference than the ACC is what I'm saying. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
He's still navigating a Power
I don't mean that as
conference.
a backhanded compliment. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I agree with you. And I don't mind the 7-year contract. If he's not doing a good job, they're going to fire him anyway. It doesn't really matter. I mean, they'll just owe him some money on the back end. Okay, that's fine. You take your chance. They did. Look, here's the takeaway, people. Notre Dame did what they had to do to make it happen.
Right.
Like, we've all been complaining they didn't do that for the football team.
I was going to say, because we already got the comments about what was the buyout, and I don't know what the buyout was, but yeah, I mean, they went, and there's more significance to this as well when you sit back and think about it. Notre Dame is going to have a black head football coach, black women's basketball coach, and a black men's basketball coach. The three, premier positions at Notre Dame are going to be
revenue producing. I mean, they're the revenue producing sports. And I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point, Sean. I think it's a great hire. And Tom Noy put out a tweet which I liked because it had something to do. It hit home right for me. He said within 5 minutes of the first tweet about Micah Shrewsberry to Notre Dame men's basketball, one of the first likes was future Irish point guard Penn senior Marcus Burton. So he must be pretty excited about Shrewsberry being the next head coach. So that excites me because that means he's guaranteed. I mean, he was going to stay anyway, but he's obviously excited about it. So I'm excited about it too.
Yeah. John says Micah Shrewsberry had one good year at Penn State. I mean, that is valid. That is valid.
Sure.
But
and okay. People are like, well, he had a big rebuild he was going to have because he was graduating 5 seniors. There's no bigger rebuild in the country than the one that's going to happen at Notre Dame. Okay. Yeah. They literally have 5 guys that are going to be on scholarship right now going into next year. And the guy coming off the bench is a walk-on. So there's a pretty big rebuild at Notre Dame, and it's a bigger rebuild than it was going to be at Penn State. So, he's got his work cut out for him, and it's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to take some time.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to take some time. And it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes about rebuilding that. And you brought up Marcus Burton, and that guy has been committed from day one, and he has not wavered in his commitment. So that's at least a good sign, the one guy left in the class. And I will be curious because I think Tom said last week that I can't remember which of the 2 decommits it was. There was one of them that could still find his way back to Notre Dame, depending on who the head coach ends up being and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, obviously those are your first calls. I mean, your number one first call is to Marcus. He's the guy that stayed committed. I'm calling him first. My next 2 calls are going to be the 2 guys that decommitted because they were once committed at Notre Dame, right? Those are my first calls. And then you start hitting the recruiting trail, man, because you've got 8 scholarships. You've got 8 scholarships. You better find a couple big men. I mean, you got to get everything. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You got to get everything. So
I mean, you've already said it. It's a big rebuild. And with the constraints that come with Notre Dame and the transfer portal, it makes it even more challenging. You're probably going to have to go out and find at least 3 grad transfers this year, if you can. And what you're going to get from a grad transfer is you don't know, because it's not like you can go out and raid some junior colleges and bring them in.
Nope. That's why it's going to take longer, folks. So just be patient. Be patient.
Yep. So it turns out Mike Brey is not going to be heading to South Florida after all. He is going to be turning to television instead? Do you think he's better off?
I think South Florida's better off. I mean, it's funny because he's like, well, yeah, I interviewed for the job, but they didn't offer it to me. Okay. I mean, I wonder how that interview went. How about that? Like, I'm very curious to see why they didn't offer Mike Brey.
Well,
to be honest.
from what I understand, look for Richard Pitino, the son of Rick, former Minnesota and current New Mexico coach, to be the head coach down there.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay. I felt like it was not going to be a great fit because it did feel like a retirement job. I mean, that's the way it felt to me, right?
I did too. And and just that job, like you talk about, a rebuild here, sure, the academic standards at South Florida are, looser than they are here at Notre Dame,
Sure.
but really all you've got with that job is you're by the beach and the sunshine and all that. And it just
by
seems,
family. I mean, I guess that would be.
Well, yeah, like if you're Mike Brey specifically, you're
right,
by family and all that kind of stuff. But that was going to be a huge undertaking as well. It's not like you were going to be in a Power 5 conference down there at South Florida. There was going to be a lot of work that was going to go into that. So I think he's going to be infinitely better off in television. And I think he's going to be good at TV, like he's got the personality for it. I think that's he can get a nice paycheck. He's not going to get coaching money unless he, really becomes one of the stars, like if he ends up on ESPN or whatever. But you can still get a really good paycheck doing TV, and he can still live in Tampa, Florida if he wants to, and not have to bother with recruiting and do all the other stuff.
And that's
your coach.
That's the key, right? I mean, I think that he would be a great studio analyst, right? They go to him at halftime, pregame, postgame, like that kind of stuff. He's gonna be a fine studio analyst. I don't think he'd be very good at like color commentary, like that kind of a thing. That requires a lot of work, a lot of effort to put in, and I just don't think that that's where he is in his life. And touche to him, that's fine. Retire. I have no problem with that. I think being a studio analyst is probably more up his alley right now. And he is a personable guy. There's no doubt about it. He's the loosest coach in America, right? And so he's going to be very personable. He'll do great behind a desk, doing his analysis, just kind of skirting over every team, just, that kind of thing. I think he'll be fine with that, and he'll probably excel at it.
Yeah, I think he's going to be good with, bring down different teams and games, all that kind of stuff. I completely agree. Studio is the place for Mike Brey, I think. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout, his Angels teammate, Mike Trout, to end the World Baseball Classic last night.
I watched the entire game, by the way. I was into the Baseball Classic. I watched a bunch of the USA games. Like, it was fun. I was
in and out.
That was a heck of a lineup that the USA was putting out there
It was.
Now, pitching could have been better. I think that's where they struggled, but they had a heck of an offensive lineup, man. And, it was getting exciting towards the end. It was a one-run game, the whole deal, right? And the last out of the game, I mean, even John Smoltz was like drooling, like foaming at the mouth for this matchup. Like in the 8th inning, they got a couple of extra guys up to the plate, and he's like, there you have it. We're going to get the matchup in the 9th inning.
That's right.
We're going to get the matchup. So he was outstandingly excited for it. And man, did we get what we paid for? Now, I will say, if I was rooting for the USA, which I was, you wanted a different outcome. I'll say it. But there was a stat that I saw that, it was some ridiculous stat about how Mike Trout doesn't miss when he swings. Like, there was only like 12 swing and misses all last year, something ridiculous like that. And he swung and missed 3 times in that at bat to strike out. Like, it was good on good. It was a really impressive matchup. If you're a dork like me and you, when it comes to baseball, like, that was just a great matchup. Stinks that he didn't get on base or, hit a home run or whatever to keep the drive going for the USA. But man, Japan earned that win. They earned it because they
They
shut
did.
down that lineup.
They did. And, Merrill Kelly in the first inning is kind of what it came down to. As somebody,
Sure.
vanilla chill, Merrill Kelly not ideal for a championship. No.
Not wrong.
I mean, kind of came down to that. If he hadn't given up, the runs early on, it would have been a different story. They had to yank him in the second inning.
Yeah.
But it's the World Baseball Classic, and Shohei and Trout are two of the best baseball players in the world. And so to have that matchup at the end and the fact that they are teammates, I mean, it is made for TV, just, like what Smoltz was drooling over, like you said. So it was awesome. It was great tension. The World Baseball Classic is a lot of fun. It's like
I loved it, man.
Yeah.
It only comes around every 3 years.
The atmosphere is just so different than any other baseball game. And I think that like people could get excited about those, if they found a way to do this more often.
Well, and it's fun to get excited about baseball in March. I mean, it just was it was for me, it was must see TV. Like I was once they got to the knockout round, like I didn't really watch the pool play, but once they got to the knockout round and USA advanced, like it was must see TV for me. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. And I'll tell you what, MJH Irish 84 said Schwarber was incredible. That last at bat by Kyle Schwarber was awesome. Like I'm watching, he fouled off 5 straight pitches to right field, but hit them so hard. Like the one almost went out of the stadium. Like it hit the roof. I was like, oh my gosh. If he ever puts one in play.
That's the thing with him, man. Anything he makes contact with is going to be hit hard.
Man, like that was an unbelievable at bat too. Just foul ball, crushed home run. Like it was, that was an awesome at bat with a good USA outcome. I mean, he crushed that ball.
Yes. And that's what Jesse texted me after that. He's like, shouldn't have thrown that pitch. Well, he did.
And it makes me even more sore about the fact that they got rid of Kyle Schwarber on the north side. I mean, I realize he's bounced around a little bit. Since he left, he was with the Nationals. He's with the Red Sox. He's with the Phillies. And I believe he has another World Series. So
I was going to say, went to a World Series with the Phillies last year. So and he's making a nice paycheck.
Yes, he is. I just wish he was still wearing the Cubby blue.
Yep, I agree. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. We will be off tomorrow because it's travel day. I'll be heading out to Greenville for the Sweet 16 with the women's basketball team. And then Friday, we will have our 5 o'clock rapid fire. I'll be out there in Greenville and on the eve of Notre Dame, Maryland, Saturday morning, bright and early, 11:30 a.m.
Is that what time the game is?
Yeah, you didn't know that. Yeah. 11:30 a.m. tip-off. That's right. Second year in a row they've had the early game.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I'll be tuned in. It'll be fun to watch. I'm ready.
Yep. Me too.
Because I won't be going to Gamebridge Fieldhouse like I thought I was going to be. So
there you go. All right. Well, we will talk to you Friday then on IB Nation Sports Talk.